So, Michael, there's a buzzword that's out there that has so many emotions that's attached to it, and it's resilience. You call yourself a resilience expert. Can you tell us a little bit more about that word?
I can. So, a lot of people's basic definition of resilience is your ability to bounce back after a setback, right?
Right.
So, to put that in other terms, so you're going along in life, you have an adversity, your ability to bounce back. And typically what that means, I told you, I've worked for the Army as a contractor.
Right.
And they used to have us do this very stupid demonstration, if I can say that, where I held a tennis ball in one hand and an egg in another hand. You drop both of them. What happens to the egg?
It cracks and it just splatters all over.
And what happens to the tennis ball?
It bounces back.
Okay. Like I said, stupid demonstration. Okay. It's trying to prove the point that you're trying to bounce back from a setback. But if you go back to like 9th grade physics class, if I just drop a tennis ball, is it even going to bounce back to the level I dropped it from?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Again, stupid demonstration. The whole goal through resilience is not just to bounce back from that setback or that adversity. The goal is to, as you're going through that adversity, to learn, to grow, to adapt, so that on the comeback you actually surpass the level at which you were before going into that adversity. So you've gained a lot. You're not ignoring what you've been through, but you've gained a lot. You've learned a lot about you. You've learned a lot about the people around you, at home, at work, all the above. So resilience is really your ability to learn, grow, and adapt, persevere through adversity.
Yeah. So using the illustration of the tennis ball, all the focus is on what the tennis ball has in itself.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about with resilience is it's not just about the tennis ball. It's about taking what the tennis ball has and whenever the adversity comes, adding some things to it so that when it let me not say bounces back because that's not what this is about. When it tries to return to its previous state,
Sure.
It doesn't just return to the previous state, it surpasses because you've added to it.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about resilience is made up of skills. And those skills, and what we know, just the word skill, means that it's teachable. And so that's really what we've been trying to implement here at Christ Hospital is equipping people with certain skills. And even if they're not new skills to people, giving them a different ways to think about how they've been utilizing them potentially to increase their personal levels of resilience.
Yeah, so the skills are not just the skills that we're given at birth.
No.
Because there are talents that we have, right. But it's not saying your talents are lacking.
Right.
It just is saying here are some different skills for you to learn that's going to help you soar a little bit higher than what you've been soaring before.
Right. And so, so you can layer on different skills. So obviously everybody has different levels of resilience. And the one thing that I do want to say in this video, if you don't mind, Dwayne, is in my very short time working with a healthcare population, one of the things that I have realized is I think healthcare workers vastly underestimate their own personal levels of resilience. To me, again, as an outsider, the fact that they're still here, coming to work every single day and doing the great things that they're doing after going through 2 years plus now of COVID, they've got levels of resilience that are much higher than they probably think they are.
Yeah.
And now it becomes my job to give them skills. Again, if they're new skills, awesome. If we are refreshing you on something that you've known going into, also awesome. My whole goal is to get you to think about things a little bit differently. And if you're implementing new skills, hopefully that is then raising your levels of resilience. And you're really starting to feel like you can cope with and really maybe not bounce with the bouncing.
Right.
Bounce forward.
Yeah, so not bouncing back, but bouncing forward.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a great concept because we don't want to bounce back. What we want to do is we want to bounce forward, and with that bouncing forward, if you will, the velocity of what we are bouncing forward with, so much more impactful than what we would bounce back with.
Yeah, and I think even if we're going to keep on this analogy of bouncing, I mean, sometimes resilience can be a messy process. And if the whole goal and the trajectory is to move forward, some days you might be bouncing, some days you might be bouncing higher than others, some days you might be rolling. But the whole part is, are you continuing to move forward? And I think that's the most important piece.
Yeah.
So hopefully, through some of the skills that we talk about in these videos, in the courses that we've been doing, I think we've started to see a lot of people really gravitate towards this because it is giving them skills. It's stuff that they can use at work, at home, now, 6 months, 6 years in the future, all of the above. And I think people really gravitate towards, okay, it's a skill. I can practice a skill. I can get better at a skill. Right. And these skills will help me in all those realms of my life.
Right. And these skills are very simple. They're not complex. They're easy to remember. They're easy to apply. And because of that ease, it makes them easy to remember.
Yeah, and I know people aren't going to remember the ins and outs of every single skill 6 months or a year down the road, but I do like to think that I do things a little bit differently, particularly when we do like the more full day type courses.
Right.
I do tell a lot of stories because I think people learn best through stories. And to me, if they can gravitate or attach themselves to a story that I've told, now 6 months or a year, 2 years down the road, when they need that skill, they can remember the story, and the story can kind of bring them back. So I do think that I do things a little bit differently in that sense. But I also like hearing stories, particularly because I am newer to healthcare.
Right.
I do like hearing people's stories and experiences because that helps me learn as much as possible.
Yeah, and it's the story, like you said, it's the story that brings the meaning and the application of everything, so that not only do you hear what is being said, but you hear, oh, that's how it works. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, how often have you gone to a course on something, and when you're in the course for that hour, 2 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is, you're like, oh, this stuff sounds really good. And then you leave the course and it's like,
it's gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
Again, hopefully if you can, attach that stuff to a story, it's like, okay, this is a real life example, right? It's an example of how I can use it at work. He also gave an example of how we can use it at home in our personal lives.
Right.
They do still have those, right?
Some.
Okay. All right. Just checking.
Yeah.
But yeah, how you can use it at work, how you can use it in personal life, that matters. Those examples, those stories, that's what we found people really gravitate towards. So
yeah, and I like that illustration because this isn't something that's just short-lived, that you get all pumped up during the workshop and it's just like, yeah, I'm going to be a world changer after this. It's something that not only impacts you in that moment, but it's something that's sustainable throughout really the entirety of your life.
I'm not a motivational speaker. No. I hope to motivate people,
yes.
But we're motivating them by giving them the tools, and in this case, skills, to be able to go out and do that stuff themselves. So yeah, it is definitely a little bit different.
Yeah. Well, Michael, with your definition and with your explanation of resilience, it's given me a better understanding that it's not about the bouncing back. It's about the going forward. Yeah. And it's about the going forward with more effective skills, more skills that will help us to be able to navigate whatever is thrown our way from this day forward.
Right.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your wisdom.
You're welcome.